Good morning, it's your crazy old coot here. How you doing? Today I was thinking about budget bills, and like there is probably no better time in recent memory to build a budget bill computer right now. So let's go over a few things, and we're going to try to keep this in the around $500, $500 to $600 mark. First thing here, of course, is your case. Now, cases have one job. That job is to keep everything that you need to build in one place. Okay. Now this case, DIYPC case, they have a lot of cases. They have a lot of nice looking cases for in the 35 plus or minus $5 range. I mean, there are others too. So that's so you're gonna figure $35 to $40 on your case. So it's probably the first thing you need to look at is your GPU. Your GPU is very important in a budget build case. Not the case, but the budget bill. You may need to go a little under what you may eventually put in there. So one of the things you got to watch out for in your cases is that you have enough room in your case to put the biggest GPU that you're going to put in this build in it. The other thing you have to worry about, and I don't have to in this case because I got a small cooler, is if you've got a tower cooler, then make sure your tower cooler fits in your case. So the GPU, or 570, excuse me. So the two GPUs I would recommend for a budget build are either a 570 or a 580, depending on your budget, and those come in around $130 to $180, depending on how much you want to spend in the brand and what's on sale at the time. So this would be the 570 is like lower end 1080p, where the 580 is solid 1080p performance. The next important part that you want to consider is your CPU, which is under there someplace. And there's, right now for a budget build, there's really only two choices. That is the AMD R5 2600, which you can get for about $120. But out of nowhere, I guess mostly in North America, you can find the R5 1600 AF, and they go for like $85. And they're not really a 1600, they're an underclock 2600, one that just didn't make the spec of a 2600. So AMD, where they're selling everything they can and customers are still screaming for more, they released these 1600 AFs to help satisfy the demand. And the good thing about the 2600 is it can handle up to AMD 5700 or a 5700 XT with probably no real degradation. And then you have your memory. Now you have two options to go for. Most people recommend 3200 DDR4 memory, and that is probably a good thing to shoot for. But if you just can't squeak it out, I like I did here, is I bought some 2400 memory, and I've got it overclocked to 2993, or is it 2933? One of those. You can get it up to around 3000 with no problems. You just have to be able to bump your voltage up, because usually it comes at 1.2 and you have to crank it up to 1.35, and you should be able to get right around 3,000 no problem with a cheap set of memory. But like I said, if you can squeak it out of your budget, you probably want DDR4 3200. Of course, you've got to stick all this stuff onto something, your main card. And the B450 boards, you can get for like a decent one for like $80, $90. You can go cheap and spend like $70, and you can go expensive and spend like $100, depending on the features you want. This is one of the more expensive ones because it's got 4 slots instead of just 2. But in reality, 2 is good. I mean, I thought about putting to 4, and I never have, you know. And on the memory also, yeah, you want either 8 or 16. I forgot to mention that in the memory section. This one is 8, and my other one has 16, my main one. But pre-game, if it's just going to be a gaming, or you're not going to do multiple dozens of tabs, 8 is fine, but 16 is nice if you can afford it. So motherboards, yeah, you can get them, and you can get decent ones. The B450s is the ones I recommend. And there is storage. You got to put your programs or apps onto something. Here I've got a Western Digital Black M.2, and then I also have a Toshiba SSD. You can get decent prices on SSDs and M.2s. The M.2s, you can get 250 gigabytes for about $63, and you can get about a 240 gigabyte SATA for about $40 to $50, depending on the brand and stuff. So you can go either way, depending on how much room you have and how much you want to spend and where you want to allocate your money. Last but not least is your power supply, because you got to put power into this thing. I've got a Cooler Master 500 watt bronze. They go about $55. I was surprised because I figured power supplies have come down in prices a little bit, but they haven't. Pretty much solid, and I'd recommend a 500 watt. Just to be on the safe side, so you can upgrade, your video card if you need to, and you'll have enough power. In the price difference between the power supplies of lower wattage than 500 watts, you're not really saving a whole lot. I mean, you might be able to sneak one down to around $40, but then, like I said, you might cut yourself short. So a 500 watt bronze is probably the best sweet spot, let's call it. The sweet spot of power supplies for budget bills.
And of course, the $65,000 question is, how much is it going to cost me to build a budget system? Well, I went through and picked out the parts that I would buy. These are not necessarily the cheapest, but the ones that if I was building a budget system, I would pick. We'll run them down real quick. The case is the DIYPC, Do-It-Yourself PC Ranger, which was $37. For a CPU, there's no question, it's the AMD R5 1600 AF for $85. For memory, I like the Ballistix Sport. I think it was a 8 gigabyte set for $39. For the motherboard, I went with the MSI Pro B450M board, which was $75. For the power supply, I went with the Cooler Master 500 watt 80 bronze for $56. For a GPU, I went with the Sapphire Plus, the RX570 4GB for $120. And for an SSD, I went with the Kingston A400 240GB, and that was $40. Now, when you add all that up, it comes up to only $452. Wow, that was cheaper than I thought. I thought it would be $500 and $550. Hey man, I got another $100 to spend. What would I do to make this better? Always, if you can upgrade your GPU, upgrade your GPU, because that's going to give you the best bang for the buck for gaming. That immediately goes to an RX580 8GB model. They go for about $180 plus or minus, depending on what's on sale. So that's about $60 more. And then I'd probably upgrade the SSD to a 500GB, give us more space to store more games, and that's like $26. And the other option is the problem with the R5 1600AF is it comes with a stealth cooler, which is the littlest one. I don't like anything less than the Spire. Spending about $30 more for a better cooler would not be a bad idea. So that gives you, depending on which options you check, about a little more than $100 more. But you say, damn, I got a 1440 monitor my friend just gave me. What's it going to cost me to do 1440 gaming? Just upgrading this base system. What I would do was go with a Vega 56 used. You can get them for $225 on eBay. I'd still upgrade the 500GB memory and do the cooler. But the other thing is, if you go with a Vega 56, 500 watt power supply is like, you can't overclock it. It will run on a 500 watt power supply. I know, I have done it, but you got to be real careful. I mean, I was pushing right up close to the 500 watts. I would upgrade that to a 650 watt, and that's going to cost you about $75 versus $56, so about another $20 there. These are my picks for the ultimate budget gaming PC. And this is your crazy old coot wishing you a good evening.